Good afternoon. On behalf of my colleagues on the Board of Education, I call to order our work session. Today is Tuesday, September the 9th. Warm welcome to those joining us here in the auditorium, as well as those watching online. Special warm welcome to our ABSS staff, as well as Commissioner Thompson and former County Commissioner Bob Byrd. And as always, our friends from the media. At this time, board members, you've had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to approve at this time?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. Thank you. There is no administrative business before the board this afternoon that I'm aware of. Anything from board members? We will move into Superintendent Finance and Human Resources. We'll turn the floor over to Dr. Fleming and to Mr. Messer, our Assistant Superintendent of Finance. And while he's making his way to the podium, I would like to recognize staff and students from the Elements Virtual School that are with us here today.
Good seeing you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent. Before you today there are 3 reconciled budgets for the 24-25 school year. If you'll scroll down a little bit, Dennis, keep going to the next page. Right there, that's the first one there. All right. We're budgeting an additional $2 million in revenue for bond projects for the past fiscal year. For some reason, invoices related to these projects were a little late coming in, so when those invoices come in and they're dated prior to June 30th, those are payables on the prior year. So we've sent those invoices over to the county for payment, so we're just recording the $2 million in revenue to cover those invoices. If you'll scroll down a little more, the school nutrition fund and you should scroll a little more, Dennis. We can get both of those. Yeah, and the daycare fund. And working with our auditors to record our pension liabilities, because these two are enterprise funds, and recording those liabilities and the expense related to those through our budgets over. So we're having to budget additional revenues for the school nutrition to cover those liabilities, and the daycare fund of $15,000 for that. Those are just accounting entries on our financial ledger. They're non-cash transactions, and they're just to meet generally accepted accounting principles related to those transactions. And that is it. If there's any questions regarding this budget amendment for the prior fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Messer. Any questions for Mr. Messer before we take a vote? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the amendment as presented?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Messer.
Thank you.
This time I will turn the floor over to, I believe, either Dr. Fleming or Dr. McWhorter, our Assistant Superintendent of Academics.
I'm sure I'll have some things.
We certainly look forward to it.
Madam Chair, Dr. Fleming, members of the board, it's my pleasure to present to you guys data that you have already seen at this point. I know everybody that has picked up the paper has seen as well, but a review of our academic performance from the 24-25 school year. Before we get into the data, I just want to cover a little bit about how school performance grades are identified. Many of you may be familiar with this. Schools receive a letter grade that's based on an 80-20 split, where 80% of that grade is composed of a composite score. Now for elementaries, that composite score is based solely from EOGs, and for middle schools, it's the same. High school's EOC composite score, obviously coming from their assessment data, but also SATs, ACTs, and graduation rates are weighed into that also. The 20% is academic growth, and that is growth that is identified through our EVOS data, which is run by SAS. The letter grade is then a combination of that 80-20 split and is on a 15-point scale. So an A school is 85 to 100, all the way down to an F, which is any school that scores below 40. So my understanding that in the past we haven't done a lot with individual school scores to the board meetings. So that's something that we do want to start to change to give everybody a more accurate picture of what is going on. So I know there's a lot going on in this slide. So I'm going to present just a overview of what you guys are looking at. So over on the left-hand side, you will see the 24-25 data versus on the right-hand side, which is the 23-24 data. The schools are simply in alphabetical order. They are not organized by score. So for our elementary schools, for growth data, so this would be the EVOS data, which would be the third column over from the right. We had several of our schools maintained the level that they were at in the 23-24 school year. That is East Lawn, Alexander Wilson, and Yoder Elementary, and Highland and Smith actually increased their growth score from where it was last year, and that's just in terms of meeting, not meeting, or exceeding growth. However, we had a few schools that moved down in letter grade, so that would be the last column over on the right. So Yoder Elementary, East Lawn, and Pleasant Grove all moved down a letter grade. For our secondary schools, we had increases in growth from Hawfields, Eastern High, Early College, and Western, in decreases in overall letter grades at Broadview, Turrentine, Western, Virtual School, Graham High, and Western High, but an increase in the letter grade at Hawfields. Now, there are also some highlights to point out in this. So it is in recognizing that wherever a school is starting from and that progress they can move forward with. So Southern Alamance did increase from a -15 on their EVOS to a 9.3. And although we don't recognize a 9.3 as being where we want them to be, that is definitely recognition of that progress being made. And also Graham Middle School that moved from a -9.17 to a -4.81, which again is a step in the right direction. And obviously we want to accelerate that moving forward. So moving forward, I think it's best to stay future focused while recognizing some things that may have attributed to the data as it is, because it's not data that we want to sit on and say, hey, we are happy with this data, we're not happy with it. But recognizing that the district had some other priorities and competing factors going on in the past, namely budget and buildings. And not gonna lie, it's difficult to put the focus on the academics, which is where it needs to be, when the budget and buildings are not in the shape and repair that we need them to be in. So definitely appreciate the work that Dr. Fleming, Mr. Hook, and Mr. Messer put forth into giving us the platform that we need to then build our academics off of. So in the last board meeting, we presented on our academic priorities moving forward. So all of these are research-based, proven to move schools in the right direction. So our focuses will be on MTSS, PLCs, foundational best instructional practices, behavioral management, and school climate and culture. We will support these through a series of professional developments that we will be delivering to principals on a monthly basis, and then also supported to our teachers during teacher work days, and ongoing supports from the academic department into the schools as well. Also, we do not have an elementary curriculum, so that's something that we are aiming to change. Elementary curriculums, and really just curriculums in general, are pretty much commonplace across North Carolina. Now, the state standards are changing in ELA for the 26-27 school year, so we are going to wait until we see those revised standards before we look at purchasing a curriculum, because we don't want to invest money into something that may not align into future years. However, that doesn't mean we're going to just sit and wait and do nothing in terms of ELA. We are working on literacy frameworks and providing teachers with support that they need to obviously still advance student learning and reading in elementary. We are also looking at, and we'll be talking about this in a moment, a data warehouse. So data warehouses are also pretty commonplace in districts across North Carolina and really across school districts in the US. When you have the movement of resources moving to the digital platforms and so many different digital platforms, it becomes very difficult to really assess all the different data sources without having 5 different monitors and then trying to compile what may be impacting student performance. So utilizing the MTSS problem-solving framework requires you to pull in data from multiple sources, right? And so a data warehouse can help us just basically take all that data, put it into one single dashboard that schools can then just use, analyze, and I kid you not, save hours of time from both the teachers and the administrators' end to more readily and rapidly respond to student needs. We know that through the financial difficulties that Alamance had went through, many assistant principal positions were cut. So recognizing that we have been able to reinstate those positions for this year, so it's something that we're glad their schools have back to support not only just school management, but obviously teacher support as well, because we know admin does more than just, or APs do more than just the buses, books and butts, right? So glad that we can have those back in the schools. Another position that was had been cut district-wide were what we call the SIS positions, which is the instructional specialists. Looking at doing a slow rollout of those positions back into the schools. That will be I'll say a gradual release because again, we want to make sure that we're being financially responsible and can afford the positions that we are putting back into the schools. So we will be looking at tiering those back out and getting those supports back into the schools as well. Also, tons of research behind intensive tutoring. So that is something we are going to put in place in the elementary schools to make sure that is intentional, data-driven, and that we are keeping up with it, make sure that we're training the tutors appropriately and monitoring that data throughout the year. Our wonderful HR department expanded the beginning teacher support this past year, added a position to that. As we know, we have a lot of beginning teachers. Many of those folks do not come from educational backgrounds or the college experience. So making sure that we have the appropriate supports in district to support new folks when they're coming in as well. And then just leadership development and support. So we have looked at and assigned principal coaches to our new principals and to principals that may have been struggling with their data. Also from our department, we know that just as a principal can't improve the teaching and learning at their school from their office, we can't support principals appropriately from central office. So ensuring that we are at schools and working with our principals and our teachers on a regular basis and ensuring that the supports we provide them align with the priorities that we have and also the priorities that they've assigned at their schools through their school improvement plans. Questions?
Dr. Moore, thank you for this data. And I will tell the community, the board saw this data over the last couple of weeks, and it's not good. It's not good data, but I do believe with current administration, leadership, and this board, we're going to improve moving forward. Can you talk more about the intentional tutoring level for those families whose students may be struggling a little bit? How does that look like for a family?
So the tutoring will be at the schools. So it'll take place during the school day and targeted at students that may be at a few different levels. So not necessarily what we generally refer to as bubble students. So bubble students are those that are right at the cusp of being proficient. Students that are at that level usually receive the most necessary, or I say needed support from what we call core-based remediation. Students that generally benefit the most from tutoring are students that may be struggling with a skill or deficit from a prior grade level, or a skill such as reading fluency, right? And because they have trouble with reading fluency, third grade, fourth grade EOGs, they'll be reading through the paragraph. In the time it takes them to read through the paragraph, they can't retain the information the entire time because they're literally exhausted by the time they reach the end. So working on more of a skill-based to help students that are struggling with a skill that's keeping them from being successful, no matter how well they might know or understand theme or main idea.
Thank you for that. Will there be any intentional communication with the parent or guardian in the home regarding that?
Yeah, so great question. So through, once we assign the tutors and the school, we work with the school to assign the students to the tutor. And this is one of the things that having a data dashboard can really help support is we can track their progress, right? We can also communicate with the home, with parents, guardians, and such as, hey, if you can read with your kid for an extra 15 minutes, for an extra 20 minutes, and then sharing that data, right? I mean, I've never met a parent that doesn't want their child to succeed. And just knowing that a little bit can get us a long way. And then once they see that upward trend in data, for both the students, the teachers, and the parents, it's exciting, right? And yes, right, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Dr. Hall?
I'm not sure if this is the time to ask a question, but about that data warehouse that you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
You talk about it as being able to bring all this data so you have a dashboard. One of the things I think our communities really benefit from is like the dashboard around the finances and be able to see that. Like, is there a public facing thing, something that we can pull from that dashboard once that's implemented to sort of help show the progress? Because I think obviously these scores demonstrate that we're, concerned and we're interested about seeing how we can continue to grow. Would that be helpful to be able to demonstrate publicly?
Yeah, and I would love to answer this question now, but keep me from answering it in a little while. So yes, we can create dashboards that are teacher-facing, administration-facing, and public-facing. Obviously, we don't want to give away student information that we're not legally allowed to give away, but it should create a additional layer of transparency. And the dashboard isn't necessarily limited to just academics. So it can pull in attendance, it could pull in finance, and it's really, that's for us to get into and discover and leverage the best way that we can.
And while we're on data, just a quick question too. Thinking about some of the other strategic ideas that you have as far as we're bringing back assistant principals and curriculum people, is there in some of the trainings and leadership development opportunities, are we doing assessment around that to see if it's being how useful it is for the people who are participating in some of those programs and or the re-implementation of those, that we can find out the success of that also?
Clarifying question. So
just assessment as far as like even just some of us were part of the leadership development opportunity. How did the people who were there, how did they find it? Was it useful? What are the things that are coming out from those opportunities?
So I've always done surveys after professional developments because the PD is meant for the person receiving it, which then gives us the information to better change it, right? Modify it and make it more beneficial. The professional development that you were able to sit in on has its second part coming up in couple weeks, I believe. And we should be able to roll out a survey after that. We didn't do one after the first part because it's mostly introductory. And so we know that as they get more into the meat of it, talking about implementation, what's practicalities and such. Yes, those are definitely things that we are interested in and we'll be monitoring.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Really quick, Dr. Fleming would like to add something, then we'll continue with questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I know we had a question on there about tutoring. I think one of the things we're going to have to take a look at among our academics team, because I've received emails from some staff members and some volunteers, I think, of are we going to continue tutoring at this school? Are we going to continue this program, whatever it may be? And I do think if we're going to be focused on improving schools and we're going to be focused on the data and we're really kind of all in, a lot of things will have to change. One, on the tutoring side, we can't just do something after school and call it tutoring. We can't just read books, or we can't just have a student read us a book and say, well, this is tutoring. We are going to have to, and I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I think we can use the same individuals that are volunteering their time, but we're going to have conversations with them about what is approved tutoring in ABSS. So I think that's one thing, because I know we've had a lot of tutoring questions. I won't say all. I will say a majority of our tutoring programs were in schools that actually went backwards. So I think it's important to just kind of call that out to say, okay, we need tutoring, but we're going to have to look at the way we do it. I think also going back to the PD side, and I'll even add in professional development, but I'll add in for our students field trips. A lot of the field trips that you've seen approved over the last year, we probably will not approve this year because of the fact that, all right, we're going to get serious about academics. We may not be able to go to this field trip for the day or that field trip for the day. We need our students in the classroom. And it's real easy for me, a teacher, me, a principal, whomever it may be, to say, well, that's a worthwhile field trip because I can find a way to link that into the standards. But I know Mr. Hook and I had a conversation this morning about sometimes the devil's in the details, that, yeah, maybe 5 minutes of that trip aligns to a standard, but you're gone for a day or two. So we're going to have some conversations with our teachers and staff about that as well, that we need students in school from the first bell to the last bell. And so I know we'll have some hard conversations around that. So I just wanted to make sure I threw that out there because I'm sure there will be calls at some point. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Let me back into questions from the board. Mr. Rogers.
Thanks for the promotion. I'm pretty sure that, like you said, no raises involved, so family won't benefit. But thank you for what you stated around the tutoring, Dr. Fleming, because that was going to be one of my questions on the evaluation of what we've been doing with tutoring and how it will be implemented going forward to make sure that it is impactful to the student and helping with their performance. So the other question I was going to have is, I know especially at the elementary level, we do the testing and the check-ins and things throughout the year to see where we're at. So with that piece, how will, I guess, you as the leader of the academic team with those check-ins and things continue to monitor to see what is going on as far as the student performance, where they're at, how they're retaining the information, where their growth is along that way, and is it going to be getting towards the target goals for the end of the school year?
It's an awesome question. So the check-ins, I'm going to start with check-ins and benchmarks in general. They have what I will call limited usability. And it's limited because the check-ins are an assessment given at a point in time that assumes pacing was followed up to that point in time. The check-ins, more specifically on this point, are done at the state level of pacing, which does not necessarily align fully with any district in North Carolina. So you really have to then itemize it and break it down to the standards that were actually taught at that school during that time. So doing a district-wide comparison isn't necessarily always the best way to look at it. It'll give you a good overview, right? But it's not, you don't want to take it as the gospel, essentially. One of the best methods for looking at and tracking data, especially in elementary, comes from other programs like MClass for reading that actually track data continuously all year long. And so those are great data sources for us to use and leverage. You also have programs at middle school that help us track student Lexile data. And we were able to secure a program for high schools that, not in terms of Lexile, but will give them a more stable assessment data platform as well. Teacher-made common assessments, CFAs, are also one of the best methods that teachers can use. And how those are supposed to be used in terms with benchmarks, so it's not just one data source and one single data source, is that you give your teacher-made common assessments and you analyze that data. You modify your instruction based off that data. And then when the benchmark comes out, you use it as a comparison. So you're looking at standard, let's say standard 3.1, then in relationship to the benchmark on standard 3.1, my common assessments, will just make this up, are saying I'm 80% proficient. And my benchmarks are saying I'm 40% proficient. So you automatically know you have a misalignment between either alignment and or rigor, right? So that gives the teachers the information they need in the conversation that you have with them moving forward from that point. That's how the benchmarks are that's how they need to be used. Looking at them as just a stagnant point, and just judging where they are is not really an accurate descriptor. And we've run a fair amount of comparison data sets, and it doesn't show great alignment between the check-ins versus the EOGs. Check-ins are very short. They give just a few questions that assess a variety of standards, whereas EOGs and EOCs obviously give a vast variety of questions that assess those standards. So again, it's a good data set just to use as a checkpoint, literally as the name is, but it's not a great guide for really measuring where a school is throughout the year. We'd need to use a variety of data sources to do that. That's probably a longer conversation.
No, but I appreciate that, because I think that gives more information and more clarity through the check-ins, benchmarks, and just other ways of actually using that, but other methods that can be used to truly show where the students are at, where the proficiencies are at, where there might be deficits and things. And then the other question is around, which I think I asked you this because, like Avery had said, you know, we've been looking at the data, probably been bombarding you and Dr. Fleming with a lot of questions this week around it in the past week or so. But just another one, because I think this is a question that came up to me, and I appreciated the answer that you gave around it, is we talk about teaching with the standard and teaching towards that standard, but also the fact of our educators in the room teaching to that standard, but also keeping that creativity to those individual students, because everyone doesn't learn the same, and it's not just a one size fits all to that piece. So how's that approach? How do you see that approach also?
Yeah, and this is a wonderful question, and a common misconception that folks have in regard to standards. So standards simply give essentially the outcome of what a student is supposed to be able to do after I have finished teaching it. Now keep in mind, especially with language arts, I'm going to approach the same standard multiple times throughout the year. So even in the first time I teach it, my students are probably not going to get to the outcomes the standard wants them to get at. However, what standard doesn't do is tell me how to teach it, right? It just simply says in third grade or in fourth grade, this is what your student needs to be able to do. Essentially the guide, right? It's why we use the pacing. The creativity in the best instructional practices that I may utilize as a teacher and you may utilize as a teacher could be vastly different and still yield great results, right? Teachers then collaborate in the professional learning communities to talk about the best instructional practices and the data from their CFA that they were able to help their students to achieve. And from those conversations, they beg and borrow and share, hopefully very willingly, their instructional practices to help themselves to continue to learn and grow and advance student learning through, and again, it's not stifling their creativity, because I can be as creative as I want to be or need to be, but the frameworks, those instructional practices that we're using are at the highest leverage possible.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
You're
McWhorter.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Any other questions from board members?
Just a quick comment.
Yes,
Using
Mr.
a
Wagner.
business terminology, you can't manage what you don't measure. And I think we're now really trying to measure where we're at academically, and we're trying to measure as academics. And I want to thank you for your efforts, and I look forward to improving our scores without the school system. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any other questions or comments from board members? Dr. Parker?
So I guess my question about the data warehouse is, to follow along Dr. Hall's question, you hear data warehouse and it sounds like maybe a central office program that is, going to provide activity for folks, but how does it really translate into something in the classroom? And it might be nice, maybe not right now, because obviously you haven't had time to prepare for it, something like a case study for this is how this system is going to help teachers. Or a teacher, like pick a class and say, okay, we're going to do math assessments, and it's going to feed into like if there's a curriculum group or people on the same grade level who are teaching the same material, and that kind of thing, kind of on up, just as a way to explain the way that what we're doing here is going to be beneficial. Again, not right now, but maybe in the future. And I don't know if you have a comment with that. I've kind of a part B as far as the.
So what I can tell you is that there will essentially be a slow rollout of professional development for administration, for teachers, because that's who the program is primarily made for. It is not yes, we'll use it in central office, but we were looking at a data warehouse for our administration and for our teachers, so that they can be more efficient with their time and more accurate, obviously, in what they're choosing to do.
Got it. And that sounds great. And I think, if it gives teachers faster and more reliable information about what's going on in real time in the classroom, that would be great. But again, maybe a case study or something like that, and we could hash out what that would look like. But a concern folks have is you create something, you get a new web page you have to have a login for or whatnot, and then you go to a training about it, and then it kind of slowly dies on the vine. I know that's not your goal for this, but it's a common fear in people who have seen kind of management of the month trends. So maybe an example or something like that as we get closer and as the implementation proceeds. So, great.
I'll be happy to share that. And also, one other note just on the data warehouse, it's meant to eliminate the need for all those different logins, because the data from those other companies should, I don't run the data warehouse, but should feed directly into the data warehouse, so teachers will just have one place they can go and get all that data instead of the 5 different programs or 6 different programs they've been having to use.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Any other questions, comments? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Harvey.
I do want to say, when we look at the data, it's hard to look at. It's hard to see in places that we didn't meet growth. It's great to see in places where we did meet growth. But I do want to say it makes me feel good knowing that you've worked so hard to put a plan in place for this next school year, and to kind of see and work towards what it will look like next year at this time. And I'm looking forward to great things happening within our school system within the school year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Mr. Engel?
I'm going to ask a $1,000 question. Being a political science major, as I am, I look at causation. Why are we where we're at right now?
I would say that there are multiple contributing factors to that answer. There is not just one reason. I think looking at the intentionality of supports from central office, I think not having departments fully staffed, schools when they were losing positions, the buildings, budget, I think those are all a variety of reasons. From the academic and instructional lens, it is, again, I think the lack of focus in making sure that we are really teaching what students are being assessed on at the end of the year. But again, none of those is a singular entity, right? And it's why for the district priorities, we have to make sure that we're targeting multiple things.
Teacher retention, that be considered?
Yeah, another contributing factor along with student attendance, right? Teacher retention is a huge factor, as is making sure we get our kids to school every day.
There's a report just came out in the last day or two. Nationwide, test scores are down, which I'm just worried about ABSS right now. The others, my heart goes out to them, and I'll be praying for them, but I want us to improve. But with that being said, COVID, I think, had and we hadn't talked about that, but these kids, they had a rough time for 18 months. A lot of them did. And I think it's hurt us nationwide. I really do.
Now, I didn't prepare a presentation for COVID, but I would hands down agree with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rogers.
And this is not a question, just more of a comment, because similar to what Ms. Harvey said, you see the data, you see the letter grades, you see all of that thing, and Dr. McWhorter, you hit on various factors and stuff. So I do appreciate the fact of a plan being in place, you having a vision for the plan, you and Dr. Fleming working through what that's going to look like, and especially when I've had conversations with you or Dr. Fleming on the fact of making sure that we're supporting our teachers, and then also how that support trickles into our students and what they're learning every day. So I just wanted to say that for our educators, for our principals, for our school staff, for our students that are in the buildings, those letter grades and everything do not define you. Those letter grades are not what your school what your teacher is, what this community is. That is just what it is. It is a letter grade. It is data for us to use and understand where we're at and what we just need to do going forward. And I feel like that we are in a better place going forward this school year than where we were the previous school year, because I just remember sitting up here at that time on the board talking about those positions that were getting lost because of where we were financially. So also thanking Mr. Messner for your work in the things with the finances, and Mr. Hook with your work on what we're doing for our buildings and those improvements also along the way. But I just wanted to say that because I want our teachers, students, principals, all of them to understand, and I don't want to speak for everyone here on the board, but I feel like the board as a collective wants to let them know that we are in support of them. And me, when I took this role of running to be on the school board, getting on the school board, I always said one of the things I was going to do is work every day to make sure that ABSS was in its best place possible, and that we're working for a pathway for our students to be successful. And so that's my promise always to ABSS and to our educators and to our students every day.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Anybody else have questions or comments? If not, I'd like to just take a minute. I don't really have any questions for you. I do feel really good about the data or about the strategies. And you know, our last meeting, we heard about our top 5 academic priorities, and I think that was a great precursor to the data that we received last week. And when we got this data last week, it was hard to swallow as school board members. It was hard to swallow as a community, as students, as teachers. And it is alarming. And regardless of whether we agree with the state metric, it is what it is. And the data is there, and we need to use that data as a tool to move these schools, to move that needle, to get the schools off of the low performing list. And what I'm hearing is that our administrative team feels very confident that in light of last week's data, that we have got strategies and plans in place. I know statutorily we'll all get, the board will get plans for each of the schools as well as the district as a whole in the coming weeks to review and approve, to make sure that what we're doing is intentional, it's a sharpened focus on academics, and we can monitor it and measure and see that we are truly making progress. And it's not a discussion that we should have 6 months from now or a year from now. We need to be talking about this at every meeting. You know, for parents, and this might be a question for Dr. Fleming or for Dr. McWhorter, but for parents, for the community, you know, I see the comments. Some are spot on social media. I see some that are totally heartbreaking. Our students, this data does mean something, but it does not mean that our students and our teachers and our administrators are not doing good things in our schools. You know, I've had lots of conversations over the last week. Everybody in this county should be alarmed by this data. We cannot move this county forward if we don't have strong schools. And I think that's something that everybody can agree on. We've got to put the kids first. And we have had so much going on. This is my 5th year on the board. And we've had a lot going on since I've taken one of these seats up here. But we should never lose focus on academics. We've got to learn to cut the noise out. And as board members, it's hard. As teachers, as parents, as leaders, it's hard to cut the noise out because there are things that have to be handled. But you can never lose sight of academics. And I think that's something that this is a gut check for all of us to make sure, what are we doing? So my question, after all of that, I'll get off my soapbox, is the parents and the community members that are reaching out, what can they do? And it might be early for this question, but what can they do that they want to get engaged? They want to support our students and our teachers. What can they do?
I'd say first and foremost would be to connect with the school that their child or children are at, and talk with both the administration and their student's teacher about the specific deficits or learning opportunities that their child or student may have, and then what that looks like at home in terms of support. It is oftentimes not as complicated as we think it is. And it would be my hope that teachers, maybe, give them another week or two to get to know the students a little bit better, but could provide some recommendations of things that parents can do at home to support their own students. And it could, again, just be working on their reading fluency. It could be number fluency. But definitely connect with the schools. Parent engagement, I'll say proper parent engagement is vital to student success.
I will say amen to that. And the academic dashboard that we talked a little bit about, and that I don't know if Data Warehouse offers that. I know that NC Star we've talked about a little bit in the past. Can we do an academic dashboard that is forward-facing so that there is public accountability to make sure that that needle is constantly moving, so that next year when we get this data, we're in a much better position?
So the short answer to that is yes. The longer answer is, depending on what the school's focus may be or the objective, or what different teachers may be working on, or if they have some family engagement nights that, well, again, I'll just stick on the reading fluency. They could have a dashboard that just shows the progression of reading fluency for a particular grade level or the school that could be forward facing to the community. However, another school that we'll just say maybe doesn't have that issue, they may not choose to utilize a dashboard such as that, but we could also utilize a dashboard that's district-wide also that has sub-levels that you could essentially access per school as well. There's a lot that you can do with it, but I will caution is just being in that sense of being realistic is that we can't do it all on day one. So it's not that we get the dashboard and then all of a sudden we just have and do all this stuff. We need to essentially work through and plan out and strategize the best ways to utilize the dashboard and to provide the teachers, because again, this is the teachers administration is primarily who we want to serve with this in terms of what will be best for them. And so that we don't stay in the realm of data saturation. We want them to be able to utilize the data that they have. And if you dump everything at one time, folks tend to have trouble trying to work their way through it. So it's, in any implementation, it's better to, here's the whole picture of where we want to be, but these are the steps we're going to take to get there.
Thank you so much. We are certainly in support of administration and our teachers, and we are here to help you move the needle. So we look forward to learning more. I think Dr. Fleming wants to add.
Yeah, just a couple points. One, the data was released on Wednesday, which is when we started meeting with board members. I wanted to make sure I put that out there. That data has been embargoed by the state until we could release it. So I wanted to make sure I shared that for public interest. And I remember when, and I want to say it was around Thanksgiving to Christmas, when I kind of alerted board members that, hey, things weren't quite going so well academically, and I really think that once we were trying to fix everything else, that needed to be our focus. Now, what I did wrong, and two things probably wrong in that process, is one, it ended up worse than I realized it would be. And secondly, we probably didn't act on the academic leadership side as quick as we needed to. All that to say, Dr. McWhorter is here, and I have been amazed. I think our principals, I think our teachers have been amazed, not only with Dr. McWhorter, but we got Dr. Turner on the elementary schools. Dr. Blackwell has now joined us for secondary schools. They've been amazed at how often they've been in the schools. Even me, I've been popping out even more than normal, and I'm gonna have to be. We're all gonna have to be intentional in that. But I think what is probably the most optimism I felt for a start of a school in my entire whatever this is 25th start of school, 26th start of school. I really. You can really feel it in the schools. The principals are more fired up than anyone. I thought I was motivated by some things, and I think some of the negative press and negative comments on social media have really fired them up. I will tell you, outside of Aaron Fleming being superintendent here, outside of Dr. McWhorter being here, there are some things in the past. I won't go all the way back to COVID, but I think that certainly those students are still, well, they're entering middle school now. But I do think through the facility issues, that has impacted learning. I think when you had friends that were cut from jobs, or you were personally cut from jobs and you went and did another job, that has had some negative impact. I think new principals always have an impact because it takes them a year or so to get cranked up into their staff. And so, and some may say, well, those are excuses, and to some extent they may be. But I just can tell you where we're at right now is temporary. Does that mean we're going to be 100% A and B schools and C schools next year? No, that doesn't mean that. I think we still have some schools that will take a little time to get going where we need to be. But I will say, I don't believe we will be having this same conversation a year from now. And probably the most difficult part, and what I like about the data warehouse, is we're going to have real live data, and we're actually going to develop, or I should say redevelop, our strategic plan based off of that data, which I will fill the board in the next month or so on revising our strategic plan. But probably, or as positive as I am about that, the disappointing thing is we only test, I was going to say once a year, twice a year for high school, but really for a bulk of our scores, once a year. And so all of the interim testing and benchmark testing and check-ins still don't even tell the story. It is how students produce on that one day of testing. So if they woke up that morning with a stomach ache, or if they woke up that morning ill and they come to school and test, that's how they're going to test. They may be the best student out there. If they don't test well that day, that whole school's doomed. So, in district. So I say all that the dashboard is going to be great information, but I want us to keep in mind it does come down to that one day of testing. So high schools have a few other data points with graduation rates and math rigor and ACT and some things, but for the most part, K-8 schools, it's one test. So I just say keep that in mind, but I do believe a year from now, we're going to have a different conversation. And I will tell you this, when we celebrate, we're going to celebrate big. If we've been beat up this time, we're gonna get our money's worth the next go round. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Yes, Mr. Engel.
Well, you know, I like to tell stories. You know that.
I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
3 minutes, time me. I've got a daughter. She's been teaching for 25 years. She did not do well on testing in the schools. She went on through college. She's been teacher of the year twice, and she is well respected in the school system. So, folks, it's not always about the test. I'm just going to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Engel.
Thank you.
I think the message from, oh, yes, Dr. Parker.
I'm so sorry, I have one more comment.
No, absolutely.
To say that I know a lot of the focus has been on the data dashboard, but in the meetings that Dr. Fleming and Dr. McWhorter had with the board and outlined the plan to reorganize Dr. McWhorter's department and the ways they were going to change processes within the school system to provide the support that principals and teachers needed to do their best work and to help students be successful. It's promising and cautiously optimistic, and I think in the focus on the data dashboard, to me the bigger thing is some of the reorganization and focusing on basics. A lot of management is boring and repetitive, and it works like a charm every time you do it. And it seems like some of this is the same case. So all to say that cautiously optimistic, and best of luck. We're all rooting for you, of course.
Thank you, Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Dr. McWhorter. We look forward. Anything else on this particular? I know we're going to talk about this a lot. Dr. Fleming
leaning
said
now.
to tell you that your crutches might become permanent. Test scores don't improve. No pressure, no pressure.
These can double as self-defense. It's all right.
But on a serious note, we're all in this together, and I think we are very optimistic and very committed to making sure that next year we have a very different report. And we will celebrate very big. So we will move into data warehouse at this point, if there aren't any other questions.
So, Madam Chair, Dr. Fleming, members of the board, I'm still here. So the next item up for your review is the contract for the data warehouse. The company that we are looking at is Abre. Now we did we had a meeting with Abre and some other and another vendor. It's widely used in North Carolina. Abre does not have what I would call a real foothold in North Carolina, so they were very eager to work with us on the contract in the price. They are significantly, they're still not cheap, but they are significantly less than their competitors. And so since we've already been talking about the data warehouse, I'm not going to get into all the details on it. But the contract is a 3-year contract. For year one, it is 153. In year two, it is 170. In year three, it is 180. And although, again, that is not a small amount of money, it is still about $60,000 less than the next closest. So 3-year total contract for just over $500,000.
Questions or comments for Dr. McWhorter at this point?
Dr. Moore, do we have anyone that is close to ABSS that has utilized this platform that we could?
So other school districts have utilized the platform, and in conversation, they found they liked it. They had good success with it, and recommended it.
Do you feel pretty strongly that this is a direct measurable impact on our low-performing schools and moving that needle?
Yeah, so data is, right? The data itself is not going to move our schools, but this should give our teachers, the principals, the information they need to assist in moving their schools.
Thank you. Sorry, Seneca. I wait to the last and then I don't have
Was that
anything
your
left
question?
to ask. Mr. Engel.
It's kind of like Mr. Wagner asked, but just going a little further, are there other schools out there that we can maybe see how the improvement was from the time they purchased, prior to and then afterwards?
If that's something you guys are interested in seeing, I can reach out to the company or the other school districts and try to get that information.
I think that would be helpful.
Could you give, you mentioned I think the 5-year budgeting process over time. What was that again, the numbers?
So the 3-year, it's a 3-year contract. In year one, it is 153. In year two, it is 170. And in year three, it is 180. And then it would stay at 180.
And those, I guess the first contract would be for a 3-year term?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? And thereafter would it be a year-to-year term or another continuation of 3 years?
Depends how we can negotiate the best price.
Yes, Ms. Harvey.
Hopefully it's not a crazy question. If we approve this contract, right, and let's say in year one, it's not working, where are we at then? You know, I mean, I understand it's a 3-year contract, but what if it's just not working in year one?
That is a wonderful question. And we will, I had this conversation with them, but we will ensure there's an opt-out in the contract.
So in the documentation talks about the roadmap and talks about some of the being monitored and return on investment. What does that look like in your mind as far as showing that return on investment?
What we would hope to see would be the identification of students in need of what we would call supplemental supports or intensive supports, and that data being responded to, and then their upward progress in mobility. Whereas right now, we can't see that, nor can we compile, I'll say, easily enough data sources to say that whatever is an impacting factor, as many teachers will, or principals will gather their data on M-Class, look at their phonics or first sound fluency without ever looking at attendance data. So the dashboard then should help us be able to pull all those into one so that we can identify root causes.
Madam Chair, I was just going to share in talking to our general counsel here. We will have our own terms and conditions. When you go to vote on this, they're not developed quite yet, but an opt-out will be in there.
All right, so great question. Sounds like we've got some ask for next meeting before we actually take a vote on the program. So anything else in regards to this particular data warehouse program? All right, we will move on. Thank you, Dr. McWhorter.
All right, so next up for your consideration is the Leader in Me contract. So this is part of the professional development that some of you were able to sit in on during summer leadership, with a focus being on additional supports for Cummings, Broadview, and Newland. The total amount ABSS support for this contract would be $227, with a sponsorship donation from the company of $88,600.
Questions for Dr. McWhorter? Yes, Mr. Rogers.
I know the Leader in Me program is already in a couple of our schools. I want to say Hillcrest, and it might be another one or two. Andrews. Okay, so looking at this, the Leader in Me elementary, middle, and high, is it also like a thought of, since it basically would be a pipeline with Broadview and Cummings, are you looking at this as an improvement of the continuation with it following that pipeline?
Yes, hopefully something that we can ensure some continuity in the schools, the climate culture at those schools, and the overall experience that the students have at those schools as they move through elementary to high school.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, just for clarity, we were working on some of this for Dr. McWhorter got here, and Dr. Morton was as well. The matching funds comes from the Kern Foundation. They're the family that started Generac Generators. And so they are the ones paying for the additional amount on this, the sponsor funding, the $88,600. But to go back to Mr. Rogers' question, we asked a readiness, kind of where principals were in this. Leader in Me has traditionally been an elementary program. They've developed an excellent leadership curriculum for middle and high school, so it's not as kiddish, if you will, middle and high. It actually, as you go through the process, you really see 7 habits come out and all to almost what I'll say executive level by the time they're high school, to an adult level maybe is a better way to put it. And so the idea is, particularly for the Cummings zone, to get the rest of those schools on board, elementary, then into Broadview, and then into Cummings. But we're also going back to principal readiness, where they feel they're comfortable at and where their teachers are at. And then we started Newland. That probably will start a trend among the Graham attendance zone as well. But going a little slower there. We know, obviously, Newland has a lot on them on the academic side. I will tell you, historically, nationwide, schools with Leader in Me have performed a bit better. I can tell you their discipline and attendance is much better, if nothing else. So that's where the idea of this is coming from and expanding it.
Yep. Thank you for more clarity and everything around that, Dr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Harvey.
Just want to say I'm a huge fan of Leader in Me. My daughter, who's a senior now at Cummings, started at Andrews and was one of the first to do the Leader in Me program there, and it actually works. Years ago, I wanted it to go from elementary to middle to high because you see how it works and you see how it helps our students. So to know that we have an opportunity to implement that is major, and I can't wait to, I don't know how the board is going to vote or anything, but would love to see how the success will be when we can put that in place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. So, Dr. McWhorter, this particular contract is covering how many schools? It's just the expansion piece?
Yeah, so it will cover the 3 schools listed, as well as, I will say, the general professional development that all of our school leaders will get.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, we will look forward to this on our evening agenda. I think you're up again.
I am. All right. So the last, I promise I'll sit down after this, is field trips. So we have 4 field trips up for review. The first is Southeast Alamance High School is requesting permission to take their dance team to the National Dance Alliance competition in Orlando from February 12th through 16th. Those dates do span over a weekend as well. The trip is targeting at enriching the dance curriculum, and it will also include a 1-day trip to the Magic Kingdom, where students will get to observe a variety and myriad of performances and choreography. They are not going to ride roller coasters. They are actually going through the different performances that will be at the Magic Kingdom. The total cost is $1,750, and the trip will be fully funded by the Southeast Alamance High School Dance Team Booster Club. Do you guys want comments, or do you want to go through the whole list? Okay. The second trip is the Alamance Virtual School is requesting permission to take their 8th grade students to Yellowstone on November 10th through 14th. The trip is targeted at enriching 8th grade science standards. The trip total cost is $700 per student. Fundraisers will be made available to help mitigate expense. And a little update on the funding. They believe now that they will have funding through scholarships and donations to fully cover the trip. Anything else will be covered by some additional fundraisers. Southern Alamance High School is requesting permission to take a trip to National FFA Convention. This trip is for, and pardon the not having the additional details, is for 4 students. Airfare is, total trip expense is $700. Central office will be covering, Central Office CTE program will be covering the airfare expense, and the alumni group will be covering the hotel expenses, so students will only have to cover food while they're there. And lastly, the Alamance Burlington Early College is requesting permission to take their AP World History students to Tokyo. Now, this does not occur until 2027, so it's 2 years out to provide opportunity for fundraising. The trip is targeted at enriching the curriculum for AP World History students, but also supports a variety of English 1 and 2 standards. Total trip cost is $58.49. The trip is planned in advance, again, to allow for fundraising and budgeting. Monthly fundraisers will be made available, with past travelers being able to cover up to 90% of their trips when they have done trips like this in the past. Community partnerships and local donors will assist in providing funding to support students based on merit and financial need, so that no student is left out due to socioeconomics.
Thank you, Dr. McWhorter. Questions or comments from board members?
Just
Mr.
a quick
Wagner?
comment. I think, we need an ABSS representative to go on all these trips. I'll nominate myself to go on these. Folks, I would tell you, it's a wonderful opportunity for you as students to travel across the world and to make sure you're seeing parts of the world you've never seen in the past. And it's a wonderful thing for you guys to do. And I fully support our children, our students, and our staff travel across the world and see what's out there. And so you should be very thankful for these opportunities, because in the past they weren't there. But be thankful for those who support you, who care about you, and be thankful about the Board of Education who does support you. Now, if you need someone from the ABSS to go, I'm all in, just FYI.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This time, I will invite our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Dr. Christy Davis, to the podium. Thank you, Dr. McWhorter.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Fleming. I have 3 grants for you today. The Assistant Principal Leadership Program has been awarded $20,000 grant from the Alamance Community Foundation. This funding will help us strengthen our pipeline of assistant principals and invest in the growth of future principal leaders across our district. The second one, the Beginning Teacher Support Program, has also been awarded a $20,000 grant from the Alamance Community Foundation. This investment will strengthen the district's efforts to recruit, retain, and support early career educators by providing targeted PD and mentorship opportunities. And the last one, Sheree Johnson of Andrews Elementary, was the recipient of a $500 grant from Thomas Tire and Automotive Extra Mile Grant. With this support, she will be able to create specialized signage to better support and serve a student who works with an interpreter.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. And on behalf of the board, thank you to Alamance Community Foundation and Thomas Tire for their generosity to the district. Any questions or comments for Dr. Davis before we see this on the evening agenda for approval? All right. We will move to our next, I believe, is gifts.
So next I have 2 gifts. Peg's PJs donated $5,000 to support elementary reading initiatives at the following schools: East Lawn, Harvey R. Newland, Hall River, and North Graham. Each school will receive $1,250, which will be dedicated to strengthen the reading support for 3rd grade students. And the last grant, Garrett Elementary School received $1,000 from the Medman Business Association. These funds will be utilized to enhance educational opportunities for students for a total of $6,000 this month in gifts.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. And again, on behalf of my board colleagues, we are very appreciative to the Medman Business Association and Peg's PJs for their support of our schools. Any questions or comments before we see this on the evening agenda? Thank you, Dr. Davis. And as we move into Mr. Hook, our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, I want to take a real quick moment to talk about Donors Choose. Last year, we Donors Choose raised over $155,000 for ABSS schools, and that benefited, I believe it was about 22 schools in our district. Those dollars are community-driven. And we encourage everyone to take a look at the ABSS funding opportunities. I took a look before the meeting, and there's 51 classroom projects out there that are seeking funding. So if that's something that interests you, that supports our classroom teachers directly, and I'll ask Emily Lynn if we can share this information on the website with our families. But it's donorschoose.org/ABSS. And again, there's 51 ABSS projects waiting for funding, and there is a community match for that, dollar for dollar. So, Mr. Hook, I will turn the floor over to you now.
Madam Chair, Dr. Fleming, members of the board, I have 9 items for you today. I think 2 of them are voting items. The first item I have for you is a paving contract. This is to pave the parking lot and driveway at Broadview Broadview Middle School. We've patched up some potholes there to carry us until we can get this project completed. This contract is for $131,050 with Alamance Paving.
Is it the pleasure of the board to go take each of these individually for questions? 1 through 7 are going to be consent items. If you wanted Mr. Hook to keep going, or we can ask questions as we go along.
I think keep going, and then maybe pause when we get to the voting items.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second item I have for you is the Southern Alamance Middle School roof design and contract administration contract. This is one of our CIP projects funded by the Alamance County CIP. So the value of this contract is $214,965,000 for REI engineers. This is to design the roof project for the entire school building, exclusive of the gym and cafeteria, which is already designed and ready to bid. Item number 3 is the Sylvan Elementary School Roofing Design and Contract Administration. This is with REI Engineers. This is to design a complete re-roofing of Sylvan Elementary School. This is a CIP-funded project. The CIP funds are set up by the Alamance County government. Value of that contract is $143,500. I neglected to say the first item I had was funded by capital outlay, PAYGO funds. Item number 4 is a paving contract for Graham High School. This includes the student parking lot, the part that is gravel, and then the part that is already paved, if you'd call it paved. And then the driveway that runs along the drop-off area in front of the gym and the auditorium, and it picks up where the large pothole was just filled on the main driveway. This contract is with Triangle Grading and Paving, and the value of the contract is $227,000, $618.98. Again, that was funded by capital outlay funds. Item number 5 is a chiller replacement contract for Hall River Elementary School. This contract is with Superior Mechanical. The value of the contract is $159,600. It is funded through capital improvement CIP funds. Item number 6 is the chiller replacement contract for Sylvan Elementary School. This is funded by CIP funds. The contract is with Superior Mechanical, and the value of the contract is $163,600. This next item is a little different. We were approached, Dennis, can you pull up the one on the right, the final East Lawn traffic, and go to the last page? We were approached by the NCDOT, and it was suggested that we, going down just a little bit more, let's see, we're not pulling in the complete thing. Over on the right-hand side is the red part. So we were approached by NCDOT about constructing a queuing driveway at East Lawn Elementary School to get cars off the road, and they suggested a budget of $375,000 and said that we'd be eligible for reimbursement if we constructed that. When I suggested we didn't have the capital funds and then suggested we'd use their funds, they agreed. Let's do more of that. Well, they agreed, and so what I have for you, item number 7, is an agreement for us to take their $375,000 and for us to engage with our designer to create the design. What they've provided is a concept, so what we come out with may or may not be an exact match to this, but this is the concept that shows how to get cars off the road to help traffic and provide for safety. So the agreement is we would take their $375,000. We would engage with our designer to do the design and construction administration for the project, and then bid it out and get the project done, and then give them back the balance. They have said if it bids higher than the funds we have, to come back to them, and they would help us with getting the project within bids. So I'd like you all to consider us taking that money. It's a good thing for the school and for safety.
So on behalf of the board, we appreciate your work with the DOT. The 6 items above that, they will also land on the consent agenda for the evening meeting or voting action at that time. The chiller, the HVAC and the roof projects that you have noted here, those are all aligned with the partnership that we have with the county as part of that joint study. Those are the projects
Yes,
that we're
yes,
kind of
those-
tapping.
Those are
Okay.
right out of the
Right out of those
study.
plans.
For HVAC
Perfect.
and for roofing, and they're in line with the CIP, the 5-year CIP that we gave to the county during budget season. Yes, and so all of those are funded. The chillers are fully funded, the design and the contracts themselves. The Sylvan roof is fully funded, the design and the construction of the roof. In the last meeting, you all approved us to move forward with designing a contract for the design-build situation we're going to have at Graham High School for all of that HVAC. That's fully funded. The one that's not fully funded is this Southern Middle. The design and construction administration is fully funded, but by the time that's ready to go out to bid, we will have closed some roofing projects at either Southern High, Western Middle, or Graham High, and there'll be funds available there for the county to do a budget amendment to move funds to Southern Middle, so that would be fully funded at that point. So we'll be fine.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hook. Any other questions or comments at this time for 1 through 7? Yes, Mr. Rogers.
Two questions. One comment and one question. Good to see about the paving contracts for Broadview Middle and Graham High, because I know a couple of us and also myself has asked you some things about the Graham High parking lot, and then we done rode through the Broadview stuff on the work that has been done on the potholes, but to get that whole paving will be great for them. And then on the East Lawn piece, just so I can just have clarity on that one, great negotiating on getting them to give us the money. But also, so from there, you said that we'll work with our designer on what the queuing will look like. What was up there is basically what they had presented to us, correct?
Yes. It'll have to utilize the front yard, definitely. It'll be similar to what we've done at E.M. Holt or Southern Middle School to get the most cars off the road that we can to make everything safe.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
I do want to say in reference to Mr. Wagner's question or comment, they have a suggestion for Sylvan as well, and if this one plays out well, they would come back and do something very similar and let us hold the money. It is. So the Highway Patrol has to work down there frequently to keep traffic moving, but I think the DOT understands the needs, and they've looked ahead. If this one goes well at East Lawn, then we would be able to do some more.
Thank you both, gentlemen. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right, we will move on to the next one.
Okay, item number 8, I have 5 capital facility grant requests. These are what we frequently call needs-based grants. Alamance County is not what you would call a Tier 1 county. I always call us a Tier 2 county, but I think there are degrees of Tier 2. The county match component is what's important here. Based on our property values in this county, the county match component for Alamance County in all of our needs-based grants is 25%. This is the 3rd year in a row I've brought these about the same time. We haven't been successful with our submission of grants. By and large, the state has been giving the funds to Tier 1 counties, the counties that have the most poverty. But what I'm looking for is for us to be fortunate enough that after they provide for the Tier 1 counties that they want to provide for, that they would have residual funds that they'd be looking to allocate to worthy projects. So what I've done here is chosen 5 that I think are worthy, an array of projects, and I'll just quickly go over each of those. The reason this is a voting item is the applications require our board chair's signature. They also require the Board of Commissioners chair's signature. And then they're due at the first couple of days of October. So if you all approve this, and our board chair signs these, then I would be at the county commissioners on September 15 presenting the same. So I do want to say in each of these are aligned with the CIP and the roof study and HVAC study that the commissioners undertook. So, and then the other piece of that as well is it wouldn't require any new spending by the county. It would just require, reallocation, if you want to think about it that way. So the first application I have is the Western Alamance High School HVAC upgrades. This is in the CIP 2 years down the road. But any of these for the large high schools, the order in which they're completed could be rearrayed. So if we were to receive this grant, the value of the grant request is $3,360,000. The value of the county match is $840,000. So when I say that it doesn't require any new funding by the county, these projects you have 2 years to get them going, not to get them completed. So in year 3 of the CIP, we're asking the county for near about $4 million for this project. If we were fortunate enough to be receiving this grant, then the county would only be spending $840,000. The second grant request I have here is the Southern Alamance Middle School roof project. That's the one that I just presented the design documents for, the design contract. So the amount of the grant request is $2,800,000, and the amount of the local match will be $700,000. Right now, the county has already allocated over $700,000 for this project, so that if you get this grant, it would be a saving for the county, and the funds could be reallocated elsewhere. The third one is the Southern Alamance High School HVAC renovation. This is on the CIP plan for next year, 2026, 2027. The amount of the grant request is $3,040,000, and the amount of the county match would be $760,000, which is about a quarter of the entire price. The fourth one is the Graham Middle School HVAC upgrade. That is actually item number 10 on the HVAC study. But the reason I pulled it in, it was also on our 5 years facility needs study. So you get some rubric points when you have something like that. So I thought it would be good to put into the mix as well. The chiller there at Graham Middle School is 33 years old, so it would be good to receive this grant. The value of the grant request is $3,040,000, and the value of the county match is $760,000. So again, if we were to receive this grant for this school, we would just rearray the items on the CIP and in the HVAC study. And then the fifth one is the Eastern Alamance High School HVAC upgrades. And this again is on the CIP. I think it's in year 3. The value of the grant request is $2,800,000, and the value of the county match portion is $700,000. So I'm requesting that you all vote on this one today, so I could take them to the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. This is a voting item today so that we can move this forward if this is something that is the pleasure of the board. Mr. Rogers, question, comment?
Yeah. So, Mr. Hook, I know you said that we've applied for these in the past, and normally it looks like that they give them to the tier 1 counties. But I do think it's smart to continue to just apply for it to see, because like you said, if we're able to get these grants, this comes from the state. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. I mean, the county match is the local money from the commissioners. But then the value of the grant comes from the state.
Okay, so then in there, like you said, then the majority can come from the state, and then the amount from the county can actually be lower than what our request was on like them capital improvement plans or anything then too. So that might be, if we're able to get it, then it could possibly be helpful to go to another project, possibly.
Yes, sir. My hopes would be if we get any one of these or more, that would just accelerate us on to the next projects on the list.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Hook, on your efforts on doing this and bringing this every year, because, I mean, any way that we can, of course, try to save on something to accelerate projects and getting more funding and help from the state and through grants, I think always makes sense to me. So appreciate you on always going this route and trying to get these approvals.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Has there been any initial conversation with the commissioners about the county match on these particular?
Well, I'm on the agenda for the 15th.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
How could they say no if it saves them money? It saves them money, and it could expedite some of these projects. So
Perfect.
it's
I
a
was
win.
just curious if
It's a
we
win
had
for
had any.
everyone.
Thank you for your efforts on that. Any other questions or comments from board members? Dr. Parker?
So one question is, do they announce, I'm thinking from a grantsmanship standpoint, because I've done some funding things in the past. Do they announce the tier 1 and then tier 2, or do they go in order of priority, or do you get a first batch and then a second batch? I guess as far as the way that they announce who's funded. And there's a follow-up, and there's no wrong
I
answer to
can't
this.
say we've never won one of these grants, but I know when they go into a tier 1 county with the full funding for a new school, and they have sometimes no match in these counties with higher poverty, they make a big to-do of it, and it gets a lot of promotion, and they have the big paper check, so to speak. I'm not sure of the timing. I think they have to exhaust all of the funds, and that's what I'm looking for, is if after they award here and there to folks who need new schools and the high-need counties, if there's funding left and they're looking for some projects that they think are of value or important, and we'll just keep knocking on the door.
And that was really going to be my kind of the second part to the question, that if they did announce things in phases, or, after they exhausted tier 1, a lot of times, they don't want to fund a partial project. I didn't know if, not this year, obviously, because we're close to the deadline, but maybe consider if there's something that's a lower dollar value, it might have a higher probability of funding kind of in the second tranche of funding after they do all the tier 1 that they're interested in, just because partially funding something is not as attractive. And if let's make up a number, they have $3 million left in the fund, and we have a project that comes in at $1 million or less than that, it might be easier to fund all of one project than try and negotiate with the others. That was the only kind of follow-up comment with that. So.
And let me add, Dr. Parker, too, that's kind of how this worked. They have historically, from my experience of several years and actually receiving one of these, that's kind of how it went. So tier 1 counties, typically a replacement school, they enjoy funding those for the reasons that Mr. Hook put it. It creates good press, especially in very rural counties that can't afford to raise taxes, or raising taxes would not generate anywhere near the amount needed for debt service on a new school. But as that money dwindles away and they need, they have $3, $4, $5 million, I guess you could say, on the side laying around, then they might come down to a tier 2 county, which is where we are at, and help us out. Who knows where that will land this year? It's going to take the legislature to put a lot more lottery money into this fund for it to get to a point that it can even address half the needs of the state. So in many ways, we want them to give us the scraps. And I do believe they will have a conversation with us if they say we can't fund $1 million, we can fund $500,000 or something too. So I believe they've done that. In fact, I think they've done some school awards that way, where they couldn't give $20 million, they had to give 15, and so that it gave the school district time to work with the commissioners in making it happen. So I'm hoping that would be the case with us as well. But like I said, we want the scraps because we know the big projects are going to go to tier 1 counties.
Thanks. I don't have any other comments. I don't know if the board entertain a motion, or if Dr. Hall has a comment.
Just a quick comment as somebody who lives in the grant world, as Dr. Parker has. I appreciate the continued effort to apply for these, because that's the only way that you can get them, is continue to put that out there. And obviously, even if we get the scraps, as Dr. Fleming would say, that is helps out the budget and carry going further and further to continue projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Any other questions or comments? If not, I believe Dr. Parker has a motion.
Motion to approve grant applications.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Hook.
My last item is a request to use public school building R&R funds, that's repair and renovation funds, for Graham High School canopy system. So going back to the bond projects about 5 years ago, Western, Eastern, and Southern High School had similar canopy systems. This is the covered walkway to Graham. Those three were demolished and fully replaced, and Graham's was not. It didn't fit into the budget at that time. At this point, the concrete that's overhead is crumbling somewhat. We have a section closed down adjacent to the gym entrances because of the crumbling. So I'm requesting that our board approve this application or request for use of R&R funds. This application is very similar to the needs-based grants in that it requires our board's chair's signature and the Board of Commissioner chair's signature. R&R funds are a special type of lottery funds that are solely dedicated for repair and renovation for classrooms. But in the event that you have something like a canopy system that serves all classrooms, which this does, probably in 9 or 10 different buildings. I can't remember the exact count at Graham High. It's 9 or 10 separate buildings. In the event that you have a system that serves all classrooms, then it would be fair game for using R&R funds. At this point, we have $1.46 million in our funds available to Alamance County. There should be another $500,000 dropped during this year. It would be dropped by the end of July in increments each quarter. So they'll continue to put more funds into this. This is important. This requires that you have an architect do the design, and then once the design is done, then the DPI engineers would have to approve and engage with the designer to make sure that all the questions are answered before they would release the full funding for the construction. In the beginning, they would release just the funding for the design work with the architect. So if you look at the application, the full request is for $1.4 million. The request for design is for $50,000, and then the balance is the 1.35. So I have some examples if you want to see what the pieces look like. I just picked. Now they're not all this large. Some are smaller, but it's coming apart. So it's important that we change it. It's very similar to when we talked about, and you can see the rust stains on here, when we did the Hall River elementary masonry project. At that time, I said we had the steel ladder wire that connected the structural wall to the exterior veneer wall, and at that time the steel ladder wall was rusting, and that rust causes the steel or that part to expand and push off the masonry. And that's what happened there. We had to go back and do a lot of work there. And that's what's happening here. So you can see the rust from the rebar. If you go and look overhead, you can see the rebar that was in the original forms. So over time, moisture's come through, the rebar is rusting, it causes it to expand, and it's just pushing away the concrete pieces. So that's what that project's all about. The timing of that's important because you have a very small time window to do the design, get it bid out. You'd have to be ready to start the day the kids walk off the campus in the summer. Underneath all of this canopy system is all of the fire alarm system, all of our data systems, internet, that kind of thing. So if you walk under it and you see all of this conduit, that's all fire alarm and data equipment. You have to get it back before kids come back to school.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Hook, thank you for that data. Is this the original canopy system that was installed at the completion of Graham High School?
Yes.
And the age of Graham High School is,
I think it's 62.
thank you.
And this request is for allocation of funds or use of funds that are already allocated to the district for a specific project. Is that my understanding?
Yes, sir. Yes, they're already allocated to Alamance County. All counties receive R&R funds. They'd have to go through this same process to be able to access them, where both boards would agree on that project. It's not, we're not requesting any new funds from the county.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rogers?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Sounds good. Floor is yours.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Any other discussion?
I did have one comment, which is not
Yes, sir.
super related, but maybe interesting to someone out there. So, when iron oxidizes, the oxide is much larger than, iron. And so it flakes off and exposes new metal. But for a lot of metals like aluminum or copper, the oxide is coherent. And so it'll oxidize a certain amount and then stop, which is why you see all the old statues and so forth. It has a green coating, but never totally gets eaten in the same way that rebar does. That's all.
It is great to have a scientist on board, by the way, just FYI.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Hook.
Thank you.
At this time, I will reinvite Dr. Davis to the podium, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, for our first reading of policy updates.
So good afternoon again, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Fleming. The North Carolina School Board Association has issued a summer policy update last month in response to a few new state legislation that's going to be in effect for this school year. This update includes substantial revisions to 13 policies that you'll see listed here. A description of each update is described in detail in the table, which is the first attachment that you'll see here. I do want to point out that you will notice 4318, use of wireless communication devices, is listed. This policy that we're bringing to you today for first read only lists changes that align with the North Carolina School Boards Association current policy. We will be forming a committee later this month, that's when it's going to start, whose goal will be to continue reviewing this policy so we are in compliance with House Bill 959 by the January 1st deadline. So do you have any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Davis? Yes, Mr. Rogers.
So just looking through all the various policies, and I appreciate the chart that y'all always provide to us on what's getting updated on each one. Thank you for that. That gives a great reference to go to directly where it is. So just, I guess on just clarity, so this is more of alignment along with what the General Assembly has done and updated as far as laws that comes down through the public school
Correct.
system.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Davis? All right, hearing none, we will see these. Yes, Dr.
I
Parker?
had one question. Sorry, I was trying to find the.
No, go ahead.
Downloaded it. So for the, let me see. I'm trying to reference the number because it looks like it's different here. The one about parental objection. Give me
Is it
just
the-
a second. So 3510. It looks like.
Yes, religious-based exemptions.
One of the notes was that the parent's note had to be in writing. Was the thinking that it has to be on paper, or would an email work? I guess I was just trying to think as far as being very clear what the expectation was for the communication.
Email suffice. That counts as being in writing.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Anything else? Thank you, Dr. Davis. We will see these again at our evening meeting. And I believe Dr. Fleming wanted to add one comment before we go into closed session.
No, I know we've had some questions on how the cell phones are going. That triggered my memory. How cell phones were going in terms of both our new procedures, but also the upcoming state law. Overall, I've been pleased. I think several of our schools have good processes. Some do not. Well, I won't say we'll have good process, but some are struggling with keeping devices off of phones, and or keeping students off of devices. There we go. While in class, and we are working on that. But I do want to encourage our parents. We know students are going to come to school with their cell phones, and that's fine. But we are seeing not only a cell phone issue, but also an issue with what I'll say ear pods, or iPods or whatever they're called, as well as like the Beats headphones and all of that. Those do count as a device. And so while we may not be able to see the cell phone, we can see the earbuds or the earpods in. AirPods is where I was going with that. AirPods in. And so as I've walked around our schools, I'll say, I don't see any phones, but I see AirPods in. So there must be a Bluetooth connection somewhere. So I do want to encourage our parents to please have those conversations as well, because then not only would you potentially get your phone taken, but also any other external device. I haven't noticed too much. Of course, if I cover up my Apple Watch, you can't really tell I have one on, so those are a little harder to find. But we definitely can tell they're listening to something too. So I just say that I think overall it has gone well. Some of our schools probably need to tighten up on some policies or ways of handling the phone. I will tell you the most successful cell phone restrictions or device-free schools we see are the ones that are using the pockets. I think there may be some issues there too, but at least the students are able to see their phone. They're separated from the phone. I know at CTech they have a little different solution that I really like, and they basically have a box. It's, I think, like a pencil box you can get cheap at the store, and the phone sits in there and everybody can see the phone, but it sits on their desk and everyone can see it, but you can also tell you're not on it. And so I thought that was a really good, unique way to do it. So happy for Mr. Davis on what he's done there. But I do think where we're struggling the most is when the phone stays on the student. It's maybe accessed a little more than if it wasn't, obviously. And also, with our staff, I've seen some situations where staff have allowed students to use the phone as a reward for working hard or for finishing a project. I've seen a little bit of that out there. We have to eliminate that. I've seen some issues where just the phones were handed out early, or students were allowed to get their phones before the end of the class period. And 90% of these have been high school. 95% of them probably been high school. I've seen situations too of where I'm in the room, the teacher realizes, oh, that student has a phone, and so we give a warning, hey, put the phone up. Again, that's not necessary. You're supposed to take the phone when you see it. And so we've had some issues like that, but I think the principals are working and the APs are working to clear those up. But I'll continually check. But in general, it's gone well. I do think there's more engagement because of that, but there's some of the devices and all we still have to get rid of. So I just wanted to go ahead and fill the board in on that.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or comments? This time, we will entertain a motion from Vice Chair Engel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I make a motion that we enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to preserve attorney-client privilege. North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 to consider confidential personal information protected under North Carolina General Statute 115C-319 and 115C-321.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. We will move into closed session at this time. We are back in open session. At this time, I invite Ms. Yolanda Anderson, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, to the podium for a personnel report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Fleming. I ask that you approve the personnel report as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Is there any other business before the board this afternoon?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 7-0. Thank you for being with us this afternoon.